Hi everyone, welcome to our study group. I want to say thank you to Alondra, Robles, and Daniel Sanchez for being here. Our study group topic is sociolinguistic in the language class. As you may know, language is a way of communicating between people, and society is a group of people that lives in a geographical place. So sociolinguistics is an integral part of the study of language and in common and in the study of impact in society over language. So it's really important in this sphere of the study of language. So sociolinguistic in this field of the study having to do with the interaction of language and society, how all aspects of society have an effect on language and how language has an effect on society. So the the study group it has like a length of 20 and 25 minutes to 25 minutes. We have 3 questions and 3 answers. Each answer is going to last 2.5 minutes per participant. And if you have just only 30 seconds left, I'm going to show you an yellow emoji. And if your time has finished, I'm going to show you a red emoji. Okay? Questions so far? No. Okay. So, all that being said, we're going to start with the first question. The question says, according to the lecture, what what aspects of your everyday life as a student or teacher will you relate to social linguistics? Alo, can you please answer this question, please?
Sure. Good day, everyone. Well, the question is about the social linguistic as teacher and student, but now I have like the most recent example that I would say, and like how it's related to the social linguistic is being a student. It happens last semester when I was learning German. I'm in the it was in my German classes, and we were learning about the different types of transportation and public transportation in Germany. And this topic was very difficult to me, even though well, even nowadays I don't remember the name of all the public transport in Germany, because in Mexico we don't have this kind of transports. It was subway, train, U train, and different types of trains that I haven't seen in my life, and I haven't thought that it could exist. And as we have read in the lecture, it talks that the most important things that we should take into consideration about sociolinguistic is ethnicity, religion, status, gender, age, and level of education. So in this case would be the regional area, because I'm not used to is if you go outside here in Tuxtla Gutierrez, it's the only transportation that you will see is combi, I don't know, the bus, and that's it. Well, taxis also, and that's it. We don't have like something else. And also, we have to take into consideration that the transportation is not as good as other countries. So, for example, that they have apps. We don't have apps for transportation. You just go off in the bus stop and raise your hand if you want a bus, a taxi, or the combi, which is different in other countries. And it was quite difficult to me to understand that thing in just 2 weeks to learn all all the vocabulary. So well, it was not just difficult to me, it was also difficult to the other students. So this is for me a clear way to understand how the sociolinguistic could lead in this. And for example, something that I wrote about the lecture, it says that educators should have a huge view of sociolinguistic to help their teaching. Learning language process can be implemented well because sociolinguistic covers a tremendous variety of approaches. So I think that a good idea to make an easier going topic would be like playing some videos about how the transportation is, because I read it, but I don't know how all those types of transportation works. So it would be really helpful for the students. That's the only thing I remember, or the most recent thing I remember as being a student. As teacher, I haven't faced that topics. The only thing that I remember is that the students ask why, when we say our age, we say I am 20 years old instead of saying I have 21 years old. They don't have this, so then we have to explain as teacher that the language changes because we have different structures, we have different lives, we have different worlds technically, even though we live in the same world, everything is totally different. So um, taking again this into consideration, the ethnicity, religion, status, gender, age, and level of education, and I think that we have to take more into consideration. And that's it.
Thank you, Alondra. Now please, Daniel Sanchez, can you please answer to this question?
Okay, there are several aspects of my every life as a student and also as a future teacher. And I can relate to sociolinguistics. For example, as a student, the way in which I interact with my classmates from different backgrounds and the language I use with them could be influenced by sociolinguistic factors like culture and social status. Similarly, as a future teacher or as a teacher, understanding the language background of my students and adapting my teaching approach to accommodate their linguistic diversity with sociolinguistic principle. Um, in general, I think that sociolinguistic is in everywhere. For example, when we speak, we can notice the difference uh, in our classmates and teachers and how they use the language, and we can notice in our speeches. So that's my my comment.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And answering also to this question, as a teacher, I don't have like too much experience being a teacher, so I cannot like answer these questions with this question. But as a student, of course, I have like a really long time being a student. And then while I was reading the lecture, it was like a part that says that the difference between lower class students and high class, middle class students is that lower class students tend to fail in class, and middle class students tend to like pass the exams or tests because the school is made for them. So I consider myself as a middle class student. So, but I can observe like during the elementary school to other classmates that were like low class, that they were like really facing problems with them. And so I think those aspects like the background, because in my house I have like a teacher. My father is a teacher, so he always tell me like you need to learn new things, you need to do different things, and he always like teach me those things. But in different situations, my classmates only have like their profession of their parents were just fishermen. So they didn't have like this background and context. So it's a good aspect that I can highlight to social linguistics. So going to the next question. During these years of learning English, tell me an example of the use of social linguistic in an English class. Daniel, can you please answer this question?
Okay, tell me an example of. Well, I noticed, as I mentioned before, when, as you know, all of us, we are of different places. For example, Eduardo is from Tonalá. Diego is from uh, where you Diego, where are you from?
Paredón, Tonalá.
Paredón. And and for example, we can notice the different accents and dialects that they use. My classmate, and that's it. Can you help me, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. So, Alo, can you please answer this question?
Yes, during this year's learning English, stick in a class. Well, there are classes, and I think that it's more common for us as being involved in those languages. And what I mean is that we're involved with student languages, and it's easier to us to be in touch with the social linguistic classes. So for example, it might be in the last semester that we studied the development of English. So it was a part of the history about why it happens. And also, well, what I wrote, it's that each language is used by different people, different contexts, and for different reasons when language is learned. So in this example, most of the time, the type of linguistic we have, it's more formal because that's the way we're learning it, and we don't have this background, as it has mentioned for each author that have their example of what is sociolinguistic. It has been mentioned the background, so we don't have this background about how to say this word because we weren't grow up in this environment. And okay, so it says, well, I wrote about that educators should have a huge view in the social linguistic, and also that select appropriate approaches for teaching languages according to the social backgrounds. So I think that in our background that we should have, it's an American English because it's the closest country we have that speak English as mother tongue, and it's like our most common reference for us because yeah, we are used to American English, we're used to the pronunciation, we're used to the structure, because even though in England they speak the same language, the structure might be quite different in some different things. Just like we saw in the varianistic approach and the videos that we saw the last week. So I think that it could be a way to understand this sociolinguistic use in applied in an English class, because we haven't learned too much about Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, England. Well, England is like quite common because of the books that we're studying, but American English is the most common use, and that's a way to learn a lot of their social linguistic backgrounds and a way to understand a lot of things, because also most of the vocabulary we have, it's from the United States. So I don't know if I don't know if my answer is clear, but in my mind it works like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Alondra and Danielle. So to answer these questions, of course, we have like a tons of example when it comes to social linguistic in an English class. Back then, when I was not like learning English, I just like know. Well, when became to learn English, I learned that not only USA speak English. So I learned that every, for example, there's many of countries that speak English, even in Africa, they speak English, and Australia and New Zealand. So, and like these variations of the English. So, in school, I start to learn more about British English, because like the books are from Cambridge. So like those listening exercises are like with a British accent. So here's like one example. And not only just like they put you like everything in British. No, it's not like that. They also like we in our books we see like boxes explaining, for example, like this word means something in American English, and in British English means another thing. But also they teach us formal and informal language. So it's another social linguistic aspect that they teach you, like how to speak in an informal situation, context, and how to write something in a formal context, which is very, very useful when it comes to very communicating in real life. So, and going to the last question, it says, why social linguistics is necessary in language teaching? Alondra, can you please answer this question?
Sure. Something that I take from a text that it might help for this question. It's in the beginning of the first text that it says that sociolinguistics have become a very important role of language, not just as a mean of communication, but also a creator of social identity. So the language, it's an identity. So my identity is Spanish and a lot of things, but my language is one of them. And also social linguistics is useful in English or any other language, for example, Spanish, Italian, French, German, or whatever language classes, because it helps students to understand how language is influenced by social factors such as culture, well, that we have mentioned before, culture, socioeconomic status, gender, age, and much more. And this understanding can enhance students' communication skills and cultural awareness, and making their learning experience more comprehensive and applicable to real world situations. What what I mean with that, for example, I have mentioned before that for the things that I have experienced as teacher is the questions that they ask about why do we say in English I am 21 years old instead of saying I have 21 years old. And I think the sociolinguistics here, it has an important role, because it's not just I'm learning this structure and I'm just reading and I'm just going to learn this thing and that's it. We have an explanation. There's a reason why we say this in this way. And there's a reason why we say, I don't know, it makes sense instead of it has sense, because in Spanish it happens. And I think that also an important thing that it helps a lot, it's when the teacher says, don't think in Spanish, think in English. And you say, but how is that going to happen? I mean, I just think in Spanish my whole life. I think Spanish, and then you come and say, don't think Spanish. But the thing here, the key is to see this background, to see why, to see the reason of this this grammar on these things. So I think that here it's really, really helpful in its Marine grammar to understand the reason why.
Thank you, Alondra. Now, Daniel Sanchez, can you please answer this question?
Okay. I think that sociolinguistics is necessary in language teachings for fundamental reasons. For example, it helps us to understand how people use the language in different social and cultural contexts, enabling us to teach and to express ourselves in a good way and effectively in various situations, and also help us to recognize and address linguistics variations, for example, as dialects and registers, enriching the language comprehension and promoting linguistic inclusivity. So I think that these are the the answer for this question.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So to answer this question, I think sociolinguistics is very necessary to language teaching. And sociolinguistic teaches like the different when to use the language in different contexts. That's why we use sociolinguistic in language teaching. So imagine we learn, I read in the lecture that if you go to Italia and you point out with your finger, that is a bad thing to do. So sociolinguistic is to teach us that you don't have to do this because you're going to be rude to other people. It's to literally understand how the society works and how these aspects can help us to give a good communication with other people. So I think it's really necessary when for people who really want to go to other places, will like to have the real life communication. So to sum up a little bit, I want you to just say one word that describes the 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 topic and why. Just like a brief summary. Alondra, can you please start?
Oh, if I had to choose just a word, I think it would be background, because like for example, as you have mentioned, we have the language, something that we have right here, like imagine this, but just in the back of the language, there's a history, there's a huge history, there's a community, because as I have mentioned before, there's no language with a community, there's no community without a language. So there's important, there are link, and behind language there's the community, there's a religion, there is a whole country, society, and whatever you want to think, it's right behind of language. So background, it would be like my keyword for this presentation.
Thank you, Alondra. Daniel, please.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, yes, just to say one word that summarize the topic that we talk about today and why. A brief summary.
Well, mm, that sociolinguistics play a, a role in both and language learning. And why? Because it helps us to understand how language is influenced by various social and cultural factors. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. I think my work will be context. Because as I said before, it really social linguistic is literally the context in which society and language combines each other. So when it comes to language teaching, we need like to find really like those contexts and aspects that can like teach us to learn to understand the language in a deeper way. So that will be my word. Thank you so much for being here today to like share this amazing topic. So hope you see you soon.